Hello chums. Metroid Prime 4 is a game that I have waited a decent amount of time for, and I played it, and I beat the game. So I'm gonna talk about it. This video is very unformatted. I'm gonna talk about the things I think about Metroid Prime 4, since they're pretty fresh in my mind, and I haven't watched that many videos about it, but I've seen a lot of videos talk about Metroid Prime 4, mainly calling it bad, which is why I want to make a video on it, because bottom line, I think it's pretty good. I don't think it sucks. There's a lot of, and I mean, I guess it's just kind of, Nintendo content right now can be kind of cynical in that people are very willing to instantly call something shit or bad because there's something about it that they don't like. And I mean, of course, everyone is allowed to express what they think about something the way they want. There are definitely people who have waited a lot longer for Prime 4 than I have. People who being disappointed by it is something that makes sense, but I kind of want to just go talk about it from my perspective. How I became a Metroid fan and how that kind of happened, and also the things that I liked and disliked about the game, because there is a fair amount in both camps. But yeah, to actually give a little bit of background, I have not waited for this game for like 17 years like some people have. I only became a Metroid fan in 2021, I want to say. 2021, yeah. Metroid was always a series that I knew existed. I was one of those people that were like, oh my god, it's Samus from Smash Bros. So I always knew about Metroid, but I didn't really understand it. And it wasn't until Dread was coming out for the Switch, and I was like, I kind of liked the vibe of it, and I thought it looked really cool. And having known nothing about the series really, I was just like, you know what, fuck it. Because I feel that's kind of what the Switch is all about, is that they kind of brought back a lot of series, some that are like kind of lesser known. And Metroid Dread was the first 2D Metroid game in, I want to say like 19 years at the time. So I was born and then made it to that point without 2D Metroid game ever even coming out. So, you know, me getting into the series wasn't likely in the first place. But yeah, I played Dread, really liked it, thought it was awesome actually. And from then on, I was always looking at whatever Metroid stuff was coming out. They dropped Prime Remastered at some point after that, and I picked that up too. Actually didn't like it. I think because I was comparing it to Dread, and I was like, oh, Prime is really slow actually and not fun. So I didn't get very far in it. Eventually returned to the game because I was like, I spent money on this, I should probably try again and see if I like it. And then it just so happened to become one of my favorite games of all time. So weird how that works. I think like the first Prime game obviously has a lot of issues in itself, but I think that is like a forever classic. You can always return to Prime 1 and then bring us to today. The only other Metroid stuff I've played, since then I've played Zero Mission, I've played, not entirely, but I've played Fusion, I've played a little bit of Super, and then I haven't touched the second game. And you know, a couple hours later of lore videos, we're here today, and I've played Metroid Prime 4 after waiting a good while. I mean, obviously, I've followed Prime 4 because it's kind of in the same vein of like Hollow Knight Silksong, where it's exciting because it's taken so long. So I've always known of Metroid Prime 4, even before I was a Metroid fan, but then when I got into Dread, I was obviously a lot more excited for it. And one thing that really intrigued me about Prime 4 was I had to learn who the character Sylux was. I think there's something so interesting about just having this character who has been in 2 games, in Metroid Prime Hunters for the DS, and Federation Force, Metroid Prime Federation Force, you know, the bad one that nobody played. And him being in those 2 games, yet being like narratively important, I think is just such a really cool like idea. And like his design was always like really cool. I guess he's kind of like the doppelganger kind of thing, which is always cool. He's got like a cool power suit like Samus. He has similar abilities to her. Because Metroid Prime Hunters, I'm not entirely familiar with it, but you have a bunch of different characters, a bunch of different bounty hunters. But they have this one who has a particular vendetta against Samus and the Federation for no reason that we know of. And then they show, I think it's at the end of Prime 3 actually, his gunship stalking Samus, or maybe that's in Federation Force, I actually can't remember. I know he steals the Metroids in Federation Force, but they were basically building this one guy over a pretty long period of time in like little blocks, just little tiny pieces of like, hey, there's this guy in the background that's doing something. And then obviously when they more formally unveiled Prime 4 and they showed Sylux in that first trailer, it was just learning the history of that and that he's been built up for, I think, also like 18 years. It was so cool, and I really love the character. He's my Minecraft skin. Sylux is my Minecraft skin. Prime 4 is the only game with him that I've ever played, and he's my fucking Minecraft skin, so aura check for Sylux, I guess. I thought he was cool enough to rock in Minecraft. So, you know, yeah, I was pretty excited. And of course, this game had a lot of intrigue about it even before it came out, because it's the 4th game in a series that was pretty much dormant since 2008, I think. And also, that was the end of the Fiazon trilogy. So presumably, I mean, we didn't know if this was going to continue that kind of storyline or if it was going to start a new trilogy. So yeah, there was just a lot behind it that made me really excited. I'll stop talking about this now. Now to actually begin with what I think about the game, like I said, I thought it was pretty good. I think the game is, I mean, the big two, I think, for the positives for this game is how it looks and how it sounds. I think in both departments they pretty much nail it, because I mean there's probably a lot of worry, especially with it getting restarted and having an 8-year development time. People were probably thinking like, will they be able to kind of tap into that Metroid Prime style after so long and make it feel like an actual Metroid Prime game again. And I do think that visually and with the soundtrack and everything, they pretty much nail it. I'd seen the footage like a dozen times from like the trailers and stuff, and I stepping out into Fury Green when it does the little like location title card thing and it does the whole sweeping of the landscape and you see the tree in the back, that's like, it still like shook me, bro. Every location looks phenomenal. Every fucking reflection of the water. I'm not like a graphics guy. I'm a Nintendo fan. I'm not a graphics guy. I very rarely play games that like look good, and I would say because of that fact, this is one of the best looking games I've ever played, just from like a graphical standpoint. And it's incredible, because I remember thinking the same thing about Prime Remastered, thinking that looked excellent, and that's still one of the best looking games on Switch 1. But this, considering this is also a Switch 1 game, this wasn't even made for the Switch 2. It looks incredible. It's the Prime thing. For every time a Prime game's coming out, they always have like this insanely looking, like beautiful looking game, yet it's like really optimized and like performs well. File size is small. It's everything you want, really. But yeah, every location, and it's especially something that is really notable in Fury Green again, is like the backgrounds. Like the backgrounds and the skyboxes look so crazy. It's just such like a mood setter. Because the first location in a Prime game is very important for setting the mood. You show up on an alien planet, and like it's important to feel like you're there. You know, I think they kind of fucking nail it with Fury Green, where it looks equally as alien as it does just like beautiful. It really is kind of similar to the Talon 4 overworld from the first game. And like the soundtrack is so good, from like the more ambient tracks to the more high energy ones. I think they nail it across the board. I think it's really sick. And also I had the Fury Green theme on loop from when they added it to like the website. I think it was after either the first or second trailer. They had like a website earlier this year, and it was the track that they had in the background, and just hearing that in game for the first time, fuck. I think every area has like a really good soundtrack. I'm trying to think, notably Ice Belt, both before and after the power gets turned on. I remember thinking there's like a little, I don't know what sound it is, but it really reminded me of Zora's Domain from Ocarina of Time. Or I don't even know if that's what it is specifically, but there's a part of the track in Ice Belt that really reminds me of specifically N64 Zelda, and I think that's like just an incredible tone. And with the graphics and stuff too, one thing I was super excited for was the cutscenes, because again, my introductory game was Dread, and Dread has some incredible cutscenes. And that's a 2D Zelda game, 2D Metroid game. So having this full Metroid Prime game, like the big one, the big expansive story game, and having like Samus in modern day, seeing what she would look like in cutscenes and stuff. I know Dread was like in 2021, it's not that long ago, but like having her in this high of like graphical fidelity and seeing her just do stuff was something I was really excited for, and it paid off really well because she looks incredible. And also, just like outside of cutscenes too, her movement is one of the first things I noticed playing the game, comparing it to the first Prime game, is that her movements are way more like fluid. I think notably going in and out of Morph Ball, her animation when she's coming out of that in Prime 1, and it happens a good amount in Prime 1, where she kind of looks like a tank. Like her armor feels way more substantial because she moves kind of awkwardly. But in Prime 4, it looks more like skin tight. It looks like she's like moving more fluidly, and I think that's really cool with like the pace of the game and stuff. But yeah, she has quote aura and hype moments in her cutscenes. She just looks great. She probably aims her gun at the camera like 20 times as a cutscene enter, but it's cool every time. And obviously, it's a Metroid Prime game. The core gameplay is there, the core movement and arsenal for Samus is all very good. The moment-to-moment gameplay is great. However, I do think, as I said previously, there is something pretty fundamental that is missing in this game. I think it's the fact that it's supposed to be a Metroid game, and I have no problem with having a map that's more linear. One of Metroid Dread's criticisms against it from people that were more well-versed with the Metroid series was that it followed more of Fusion's routes than it did the previous 3 games, in that you have like this kind of tutorial character, I guess, that like kind of tells you what to do and where to go, and the game is designed in a way to make it so you're less likely to get lost. So it feels like you're not really exploring as much, and instead you're just progressing. But I actually liked Dread. I thought Dread was really good, regardless of that. And I guess I don't really have much of a reference point for the older Metroid kind of style. In fact, I tried playing Super, and I couldn't do it because I thought the movement was a bit shit. But like this, in my first hour or two, I had already noticed it. When you like look at the map of each area, even if you haven't fully explored it, it's like kind of baffling how safe and like padded it is. Where I'm sure if you compared it to the map of like Metroid Prime 1 areas, I'm talking as soon as Fury Green is like a series of 3 straight lines and a circle, and that's the entire area. And I thought that was like okay. Even though they have a tutorial section, they have an entire different area for the tutorial of the game. And I was like, okay, it's weird that they're kind of treating Fury Green as the tutorial area. Usually at this point in the game, you're kind of just doing what you want. And I was like, okay, that's weird. And then you finish the area, and like that's kind of it. There's no bigger part of the location that you just don't have the ability to explore. It's kind of just extremely linear. It's just, one of the locations is literally just a fucking bridge, where it is a straight line, and then you go through a door, and it's another straight line, and then, hey, maybe you could turn left, and that's a straight line forward too, to the next area. And even before that, even before you get to the, like, base camp part and the bridge, from where you start out, you just kind of walk straight forward, and there's some turns, but, like, again, to compare it to Talon 4 Overworld, you drop into that area, there's like 5 different doors to go through. There's like a bunch of different areas, and some of them you can't access yet. So you're like, oh, I gotta get the upgrades to go get that stuff. But in Prime 4, it's just extremely linear, and I'm not really sure why. Because they clearly put in a lot of work to make it feel more like Prime. Such a big appeal of Prime, to me at least, is that it's 3D Metroid. You have a lot more freedom of like, we can make this area huge, expansive, and real feeling. But Fury Green feels like it's a location from a video game instead of, you know, a place from a planet, which is a real shame because it looks incredible, but it doesn't feel incredible. This didn't start to piss me off until Volt Forge, which is the next location, where I think Volt Forge is where it is most egregious. I think Volt Forge is genuine dog shit in terms of the map layout, but like, because again, I think as a location, story-wise and visually, it's an amazing set piece. But if it's not fun to play, then I don't really care. It's a series of hallways that lead to elevators, which lead downward to more hallways that you have to descend slowly to get something that you need, and then go to the next tower, which is the exact same thing. It's a little bit confusing, and this kind of design is seen throughout the game. I think it's a little bit less annoying in places like Ice Belt. Ice Belt is a part of the game that I actually really like. And like Flare Pool is like fine, the Grant Mine's fine. It's just a big part of Metroid is finding places that are inaccessible, finding the items and equipment and upgrades needed to access those areas, and then going back because you remember that you need to go to those areas, and then being able to explore them, and then feeling satisfied because you can do that, and you'll get more items and more upgrades and stuff for doing that. But with Prime 4, it kind of feels like a lot of the items that are hidden in areas you can't access are kind of just like, oh, you need like, oh, you don't have the psychic boots, so you can't jump on these 2 platforms which lead to a ledge that has the missile upgrade. Like, nothing that is like locked behind needing abilities. It doesn't really lead you anywhere that's interesting. Everything's kind of just hidden in the rooms that you already explore. There's nowhere to explore. There's no incentive really to explore anyway. You kind of just move through areas, and that's another thing with structurally how the game is. With Soul Valley, which is, I guess there's something I'll get into right now. Soul Valley kind of sucks, which is, again, quite frustrating, because I think controlling Viola and just driving around in the desert itself is really fun. But yeah, it's an open hub area, which is a strange idea for Metroid in my opinion, because I think a big appeal is having all of the locations connect to each other. Again, going back to Prime 1, like thinking just like the elevator rooms. Say, for example, one that comes to mind is going from Chozo Ruins to Magmore Caverns. When you do that, when you take the elevator down to Magmore Caverns, the design of Chozo Ruins follows into the elevator room and then slowly changes into Magmore Caverns because they're connected. But with having a hub area like Soul Valley, you kind of don't get that. You kind of get that in a way, but all of the locations have to connect to Soul Valley and not each other, so it's not nearly as cool. Especially when you're navigating Soul Valley, you just have like, there's the big tree over there, which means that's Fury Green. You have the big ice mountains, that's Ice Belt. You have the volcano, that's Flare Pool. All of the areas are kind of marked with just like here's our one characteristic for each area, which, I mean, might as well lead into that, and it's something that applies to the story, which I won't talk about that much right now. This game is very, very derivative and kind of like bland in the sense that there is a lot of stuff that is unique. Like I said, Ice Belt I thought was actually quite a cool location, mainly because that's where a bulk of the lore is. And also, I just think the way it's like paced story-wise is really cool. And it actually felt like you were exploring a facility, kind of, even though it's a bunch of hallways, like I said. But like Fury Green, that's Talon Overworld. You have Ice Belt, which is like Friendrana Drift, Flare Pool, Magmore Caverns. All of the locations are very just like... Also the names, by the way, I didn't even mention that. The names suck. The names are really bad for the locations in this game. They're really bad. And I hate them. You make a forest location, its whole characteristic is one big tree, and you call it fucking Fury Green. One of the words you use to describe the forest area is the fucking color. Are you serious? It would make sense if there were like code names or something, but I'm pretty sure these are supposed to be the names of these locations. Like on this planet, the people that lived here literally looked at it and said, that's a flare pool. Which also doesn't make sense, because the volcano that Flare Pool is in has a name. So why is it not just the name of the volcano? On the more derivative nature of the game's design, as I was alluding to earlier, the story and the narrative and the lore are all kind of just as basic. Take the Chozo from Metroid Prime and just Metroid in general. Take their backstory from that game and their lore from that game, copy it, paste, and then edit over it, because you have a new OC and it's called the Lamorne. And they're really cool and have a very tragic backstory, and the great tragedy befell their planet, and now they're all gone, and Samus must help them. I'm pretty sure this is kind of a similar thing that happens in Prime 2 and 3, where Samus kind of just keeps getting into a fucking situation where these people need her help specifically, and she's like, God fucking damn it. In this game, with its story, I think it feels especially prevalent that it's just kind of beat for beat Metroid Prime. But instead of, again, another appeal of Metroid Prime is the scan mechanic, which makes it so you have to search for the story yourself. In the first Prime game, it is just Samus on the planet. So the story isn't told to you. You have to search for things and then draw your own conclusions of what the story is. Outside of lore, like log things, the entire story of the game is just told to you by, if not your NPC buddies, we'll get to them. It's the epic projection guy being like, hey, so this bad thing happened to us a long time ago. Can you do something, please? And just everything about the lore of the Lemorn is just told to you, just like straight up, no black and white, no searching for the clues yourself. You can find the lore and stuff, but they kind of just recap it in the cutscenes anyway, so it's kind of like, yeah, it's whatever. And as I mentioned before, the non-player characters are a very big part of this game. There was a lot of talk just before the game came out talking about these non-player characters and their inclusion in the game being very questionable because they released footage, I think like a week before the game came out, with the first one you meet, Miles McKenzie, having the most baffling dialogue to have in a game in the first place, but to also have in a Metroid game, which is a game all about isolation, and then just before release, kind of learning that they're not doing that in this game was a pretty big drop for a lot of people. And my final verdict on the NPCs after playing the entire game is that they are completely fine. They probably shouldn't have been in the game in the first place, but face value with what we have, I think they're actually pretty okay, except for Miles McKenzie in specific context. Well, first of all, his introduction scene, I actually kind of love it in a weird fucked up way. I kind of love Miles McKenzie because he's so fucking annoying that he kind of loops back around to being like funny, like actually funny. He had an awesome line in my playthrough where we bumped into enemies, and in his awesome quippy way he said, why is everything in this jungle trying to kill us? And I looked at him. I stopped and looked at the character aiming his gun at the enemies and not firing, and I actually laughed. It completely destroys the vibe of Metroid Prime. It completely decimates the vibe that Fury Green sets up. It's just an entire 180 flip on itself, but in that way I also kind of love it because it's so stupid. Throughout the rest of the game, actually, once you set up base camp, I think he's like actually okay. Especially when you find more of the NPCs and it kind of gets more diluted. He's not the only character talking to you. I think he's actually pretty okay, and he actually has a good moment very late in the game, I would say. But I think otherwise he was completely fine, except for in Soul Valley, where he is at his most annoying, because it works in line with how linear the game is. For some reason, I think they just made this game way too safe, for, I guess because it's been a long time since the last Prime game came out, even though they re-released the first one, but they try to make it just so hand-holdy. So anytime you enter Soul Valley, the hub area of the game, anytime you enter it, without fail, if you're there for more than like 60 seconds, you get a little call, because he also finds a way to call you. He can communicate with you outside of when you're talking to him. He will call you and tell you exactly what to do, and it is incredibly frustrating. I know, especially later when I was doing the green energy quest, which sucks, by the way. I'm gonna get that out of the way now, actually. That is a horrible part of the game, and I have no idea why they put it in. I kind of didn't mind, because I liked just driving around the desert with Viola. I thought it was fun. But having to go on this weird scavenge hunt for a bunch of green energy by breaking crystals and shit is such a random thing to put in this game, and it serves zero purpose, and it's not fun, and I don't know why they did it. But while doing that quest, he called me like 10 times, because I was in the desert and I was also going to different areas getting items and stuff that I missed. I forget what the exact line is, but he's like, do you think you have enough crystals for the altar? Remember, you can bring the green energy crystals to the altar in Fury Green, so we can make the memory fruit. Just bar for bar, every time the same exact line he would say it to me, and as if that wasn't exactly what I was trying to complete. And like, it's almost fucking insulting too, because as I said, the game is like piss easy in the way that, like, bro, you're not getting lost. They made damn sure that you cannot get lost in this game because of how it's designed. So then still having a character who's basically just like hand-holding you, just being like, hey, you should check out this area to find this item. Maybe you'll find something important here. It's just annoying. I would understand if they had, because in Prime 1, again, they kind of had a system like that, where if you spend enough time in an area, it'll show you a part of the map that you need to go to as like a pop-up. That happens so infrequently, whereas this is every time you're in the hub area, he'll call you up because he's bored, I guess, and just be like, hey Samus, have you thought about going to the area that you're actually currently going to? You're driving towards it right now, but I just want to tell you in case you didn't figure that out, that that's where you're supposed to go. It sucks. The other NPCs, however, I'm glad to say it, I thought were a lot better. Namely because most of them don't talk as much as him, and one of them is a robot. I actually really liked Tokabi. He's very unique. He's a very unique character, and I was actually confused by it. I thought he might have been important story-wise, but no, he was just kind of cool because you can find him out in Soul Valley as one of the 3 attractions in Soul Valley. You can find him and he's playing like his harmonica and he's just chilling with a campfire, and you'll walk up to him and he'll literally just let you chill out and he'll tell you a story. And I thought those little moments were actually pretty cool. I thought that was a really good use of having NPCs in the game. And I was very surprised by it. I thought it was a cool little detail to just be like, hey, you can walk up to this guy and he'll tell you a little story. It doesn't feel... I mean, all of the NPCs are very tropey. Like, Miles McKenzie is the nerd. Duke is the kind of, like, gruff sergeant who has a little wholesome Chungus heart deep down in there. There's Nora, who is like the peppy, cheery one. You have View, who's the robot and talks like a robot, and that's the entire humor. The joke is that he's a robot. And Tokabi, who's kind of like the isolated, like, quiet one, who talks like this about hunting and being awesome to Samus. I thought he was cool. And all of the other NPCs, View is my favorite, probably. I would say View and Tokabi are fighting for my favorite characters. View is just a robot, and because of that, he reminds me of Omega from Sonic, and I really like that guy. So I like View as well. I would say Nora or Armstrong and Duke were also not as annoying. They kind of in Flare Pool, which is the area where you find them. They, like, Armstrong specifically can get, like, kind of annoying, but I like that they're in the game. I think they're pretty fun characters. And, like, yeah, the characters are, like, pretty flat. They're pretty basic, but in a way, I kind of like when they all go back to base camp, you can listen in on their conversations, which I think is actually one of the few benefits of having the NPCs in the game, is hearing them talk to each other about just, like, life stuff. I heard dialogue about Duke talking about his daughter to Armstrong, and I was like, oh, you see, that's actually pretty cool, because that's something that I had to go out of my way to listen to. I had to walk up to them. Sure, I was in the area anyway, and I literally just had to walk up to them. But it adds a lot more just, like, depth. It's great that they're not just standing around and being like a tutorial. And I think the closer you get to the end, the less annoying the NPCs get. Because, like I said, there's more of them. So you're hearing more of all of them rather than just one. And I think it's insane that Miles McKenzie had to be the one to start on, because he just fucking drops the "it's about to get real nerdy in here" nuke on the fucking game script and completely changes the vibe. But everyone else, I think, was pretty good. And speaking of characters, like I mentioned earlier, I guess I'll get into spoilers now, because I'm gonna talk about Sylux. So if you're 30 minutes into a Metroid Prime 4 video and you don't want to hear spoilers, you should leave. One minor thing before getting into the actual final encounter with him, I really didn't like that they have the robots that just look like him be like the people that are impeding you. Because one thing I wanted going into this game is I wanted Sylux to be a constant threat throughout the game. For one, he's just a guy like Samus. He's just a human person. So I think it would make more sense to have him appear throughout the story and be an active villain, rather than like Meta Ridley in Prime 1, for example. You see him twice in the first, like, 2 hours of the game, and then you don't see him again until you fight him at the end. Which, for the record, I think is fine for Meta Ridley. I thought that was fine. But unfortunately, it's kind of the same here. You see Sylux appear at that cutscene after you fight Ibrax, I think was its name, whatever, the Metroid Fusion pirate thing, which is a cutscene that I've seen a fucking dozen times because I've looped the trailer that many times. But he technically doesn't appear until the end of the game, but I thought that wasn't the case, because in Vault Forge, Sylux showed up and I got really excited and I started fighting Sylux and I was like, oh, this is really cool. And then you beat him, and then the hologram around this body dissipates, and it's just a different version of a robot that you've already fought 1,000 times wearing his appearance. I don't know why they need to do that, by the way. I don't know why that's a thing they can do, because I'm pretty sure that never happens anywhere else throughout the game except for the 2 fake Sylux boss fights you have. And then he's piloting like this thing in Flare Pool where he's trying to kill you, and I thought that was actually Sylux, but then I'm pretty sure the end of the game confirms that Sylux has been in Chrono Tower the entire time, kind of waiting for you to show up. So that was a thing that I was kind of disappointed by. But moving into the actual encounter with Sylux, holy shit. Before playing the game, I knew that he spoke because the amiibo thing spoils it, but hearing him speak for the first time, and I think because a huge thing with that is that Sylux has never spoken before, and he's very similar to Samus, where like if Samus started speaking, it would be weird. If she said honestly anything, it would be weird. They had a whole game where she talked, and people don't like that one, so they kind of learn their lesson and don't have her talk, except for in Metroid Dread, where she speaks the Chozo language, but that is, as we call, a hype and aura moment. Speaking of such concepts, Sylux fucking rocks. He pops out of the healing pod, and his first lines in the entire game is, "Samus, I've been waiting for this," and his animation during that part too, I was bouncing in my little seat. And I really like his boss fight. You have like 3 phases. You have the one where you're fighting him with your NPC buddies. You have this weird in-between phase that kind of controls, honestly, really weirdly, and it confused the shit out of me the first time I did it, but it looks sick. And then you have like the final phase where it's just you and him, and it's very brief. I do think my biggest criticism for Sylux in this game is that he's just simply not in this game enough. I would have genuinely killed for him to be more active, because him in this final moment, especially in like the final cutscene where they're holding him back from going into the teleporter, and he screams Samus's name and shoots at her. Dude, that is my goat. That is my Minecraft skin, bro. I'm hoping that he is the main villain of this new Prime trilogy. I hope this is like the Sylux arc, because it really does seem like they're setting that up. I'll talk about the ending now too. It was really funny because as soon as I beat the game, I was reading stuff about it, and people were talking about it like, well, that was it? That was Sylux after 18 years? That was Sylux? And like, obviously, going into this game, I was also under the perception that this was the Sylux game. This was supposed to be the game that explained him entirely, but that's not really what we got. We kind of got like a snippet of Sylux, and the information that we were given is pretty much just stuff that we already knew, so technically nothing was really learned. Like, I can understand people being mad about it, but I think what they're actually doing here is that they are trying to kind of reintroduce him to people who might not be aware of him, and that this is technically his beginning. And I'll talk more later about what I think they could have done better, but I think this is very clearly like a Sylux will return in a Avengers Doomsday kind of thing. They establish in the fight that he can teleport, like he can control space, time, and shit or whatever. He brings Samus to this weird planet area, and then he falls into the void and then comes back just fine. And he genuinely solos everyone that he was left with, so I think he's literally just gonna decimate the gang and then teleport back to try to find Samus in Metroid Prime 5. I'm a little bit mixed on the Sylux backstory, because you get flashes of it throughout the game, and I think it's really sick, and I think it's for 100% completion you get the cutscene, and the cutscene itself is really cool, but I think the reason people were like, that's Sylux, that's his payoff, was because that one cutscene is pretty much all the context you get, and people are assuming this is his final appearance, which I don't think is true. I think this game is kind of more about establishing Sylux in a more concrete way, because let's be fair, him being a character in Metroid Prime Hunters and Federation Force isn't, who cares? Who actually cares about that? What normal person cares about that? I think this game is just establishing his hatred for Samus in a way that more people will see, and then it'll get developed more in Metroid Prime 5 and 6, hopefully, if that's what the plan is, because what they use Metroid Prime 1 is like the base point for 2 and 3, so those games kind of came out relatively quickly around each other, so hopefully, I hope they use the engine for 4 to make more games, because it is incredible. But yeah, I think I think looking at this as just the beginning of Sylux is so promising, because his cutscene leaves a lot to unsaid it leaves a lot to be kind of interpreted. I'll talk about the ending in a second. But that cutscene where he wants power, he wants the pirate's weapon, which is kind of the only thing that's overtly stated. And obviously his aversion to higher ups, he goes against their orders. It's the scene where she reaches out to him and he looks up dejected as the only one from his squad that wasn't decimated by the weapon, and he slaps her hand away. There is so much there that has to be developed, because we don't even know. Their history has to go beyond this, because I've read comments and stuff about it too, where if his entire hatred for the Federation and for Samus was from that one moment, that would make no sense. Because his entire existence to us is that he hates Samus. So there has to be a lot more history with these people. And also, I think there's definitely more, because when you beat Sylux and he falls into like the void, Samus has a moment where she like pauses and reaches out to him and tries to catch him and like runs up to him as he's falling. There has to be a far deeper relationship between these two characters that I think we simply just don't know yet. So I think looking at this as like a beginning point, I can understand people being disappointed that he's not in the game. I'm disappointed he's not in the game more. He's not very developed. It is more of like a, hey, this is a character, we're gonna introduce him as like, oh, this is Sylux's game. This is the game where he does his thing. But he kind of doesn't. He is there. He is the final boss of the game. I think he's a very fun boss. I think he's a cool boss. But I think this is just his first appearance of many. And I think we have better Sylux moments to look forward to. Also, on that note, the ending of the game is something that I was really surprised by, because I thought with just the tone of the game and having all of this ragtag group of friends, of lovable, marketable characters, I thought the game was going to end very simply with you defeating Sylux and everyone going back through the teleporter and that being the end of the game. So I was very surprised when the mood switches very quickly when Sylux comes back. He's mauling the team. I've already seen awesome gifs of that cutscene where Sylux is fighting all of Samus's teammates, specifically of Duke punching him in the face, and also when he shoots Miles. I know everyone fucking cheered when that happened. Everyone who played the game literally jumped out of their seat and raised their hands like it was a fucking football game. I know everyone was losing their shit at that. Because one thing I really wanted was also just like when I was thinking about Sylux before the game came out, when they revealed that they were NPC characters, when they revealed that they were NPCs, I wanted nothing more than for Sylux to kill all of them, because I thought that would have been a really good tone setter for like, oh shit, he's evil as shit, which he didn't quite do. Or well, he may have. I suppose it's implied, but he shoots at Mackenzie, so he can't do anything, and everyone else has to hold him back because the teleporter is about to blow and you have to go. And you have this awesome moment where Samus is hesitating, holding her hand over the teleporter, and she has to leave them behind. And I've seen a lot of people say that that's a mischaracterization of Samus, and that she wouldn't do that. But I think it's very clear that it was survival. And also she had the legacy, she had the memory fruit, and she kind of just had to escape in that moment. There was nothing that she could do, because Sylux would have... It was either the teleporter was going to explode and kill everyone, or she used it and escaped with the legacy fruit and the memory of everyone. And, like, I can understand thinking that, but I thought it was actually quite a good moment. Because she very clearly doesn't want to. She does not want to do that. I think they very deliberately show her hand moving very slowly over the teleport button and like moving back and stuff, because she does not want to do this. And I thought it was a really cool moment. And the tone of the ending was really cool. The final cutscene, I think, of her planting the memory fruit and then putting the little Solon pendant from Tokabi on the tree was really cool. And I thought it was a really, really surprising... I don't know if I'm stupid for thinking it was surprising that they effectively killed these characters off. And just having Samus end the game by herself, I thought was really effective. I thought it was sick. And then obviously, I think, like I said before, they get left behind with Sylux, and I don't think anyone survives that fight against him. If there were any Miles Mackenzie fans in the chat, I'm sorry. I think obviously it can be argued that the ending, although like I do like fundamentally what they're doing, and I think obviously when recency bias isn't a factor, I'll look at it more for what it is, because right now, like, I really love the ending, but that might just be because I love the concept of it. Because to be fair, like, these characters are very bland and like boring and kind of just like little cardboard cutouts of personalities, so the ending might not land for a lot of people, because these characters are really people that are really characters that people care about, and along with Sylux being kind of unfulfilled, people will probably just like get to that part of the game and like see the credits roll and just be like, what the fuck was that? I personally think the ending's really cool, although not in the sense that I was like sad that the characters were dead. I thought it was a cool moment for Samus more than anything, which is, you know, at the end of the day, that's kind of what's important. And like, yeah, the characters, I'm not losing much sleep over Miles McKenzie being dead, although it's really funny that that's the case. And on Sylux, just before I finish the video, I think that although I kind of like his interpretation of this game, although it is flawed, and I do wish he was just in it more, and that they had more of his context from the past. The one cutscene that they showed, because the way I'm looking at it is that there is something deeper to it, that there is something being implied rather than being stated. And let me be very clear that if this cutscene is just as it is, surface level, that he hits her because she destroyed his little fucking toy, and that's the reason he hits Samus and the Federation, that's ridiculous, and that is a horrible payoff for a character. But looking at it a little bit deeper, I think this is just the start of a character that will hopefully develop a lot more, because I know a lot of people are saying that he's very one note, that his entire thing before the game was that he hated Samus, and then after this game, he still just hates Samus, and we don't really know why. But I'm kind of hopeful, and if you're someone who thinks Sylux is complete dog shit in this game, fair enough. I wish there was more of him, but I don't think he was necessarily, I don't think he's dog water. I think he still has a lot of potential, and with the way I'm seeing his cutscene, the 100% cutscene, I'm seeing something beyond what is being explicitly shown. I think that there is a lot that you could explore with the relationship between Sylux and Samus. I do think it's kind of stupid that this game wasn't the big, like, eureka moment for Sylux, where it's like, oh, this is why he's doing this. But if they are to make more games about him, I think it's cool to save some of that, and then maybe retroactively make him a better character by showing stuff in 5 and 6. So I guess we'll just have to wait. To summarize my thoughts, I do think there was a lot that could have been better here, and I do understand that a lot of people would feel disappointed with something like this, especially with how long they had to wait, and with how special a series like Metroid Prime is. But I do still think there was a lot of good in this game, and I think a lot of people have called it just bad or trash or like a disaster. I think the game is like good. It is very unfortunate that it's maybe not as in-depth or as developed as it could be, and I am really curious about the development of the game. I need to read more of the interviews about it, but I'm just happy that this game exists in the first place. I do still think it's a really special game, and it's a historical game. Metroid Prime 4 is very infamous for taking as long as it did, and in the end, I was pretty happy with what I played. God knows if I'll ever replay it. I feel like it's going to be a hard one to replay compared to Prime 1, especially because of that fucking green energy quest bullshit. But I liked it. I thought it was good. And of course, thank you for watching. If you've listened this far in, I do appreciate it. I just wanted to make this video as quick as I could off the foot of beating the game, just to kind of get my immediate thoughts out into a video. But yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you for watching. Minecraft Sylux, do you have anything to add?
Oh yeah, I'm coming back, bitches.
Alright, thank you. Thank you, Minecraft Sylux.
No problem, man. Have a nice day.